melt this when I'm ocean wave.
Today on Nova Legends, I have the high-powered Marshall High School coaching staff with Jerry Lin, at least Nova Legends co-coach of the year last year in the Northern region, and Coach Brian Doyle, who's joining the staff after being at Osborne and having an illustrious head coaching career himself, which Chris Jolly will attest to. Guys, good to see you again. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Julian.
Thanks, Julian. Thanks for having us.
Oh, of course. Well, let me give you guys a quick bio again. Again, for Coach Doyle. Jerry played at Marshall. I actually was a summer league coach for our mutual friend Kevin Weeren. Jerry played, I think you're 2001 Marshall, Jerry?
That's right. I was Julian, just for the record, I was a very below average player. And you coached me up, and I appreciate the heck out of it. And I will always thank you for allowing me to have some sort of playing time at the summer league level.
Yeah. Well, thanks for saying that. And as Coach Doyle knows, if you can't play, you coach. If you can't coach, you ref. And if you can't ref, you do podcast. So
there you go.
There you go. Very true for my very true for my situation.
No, you were a good player. You had a lot of talent. Your generation was pretty stacked. Yeah. So it wasn't always easy getting everyone in. But anyway, Jerry went to George Mason. He coached with Coach Weeren after he got out of Mason and went back to Marshall. I know you followed Kevin to Freedom South Riding, and then came back and coached with Coach Hale at Marshall. And then in 2019, you became head coach at Marshall. And as we say, the rest is history. Coach Doyle played at James-Madison High School. I saw Coach Doyle play at regionals, I believe, at Robinson. I think we talked about it before. But anyway, Coach went to James-Madison. Coach at Paul the Sixth for Coach Grubb, right?
Right, Coach Grimm. Yeah,
Grimm. I'm sorry. A great guy, great coach. And I remember you and Kevin were, I believe, both on the sidelines with Coach at Paul the Sixth.
Correct.
Coach, did you become the head coach at Paul the Sixth as well?
No, I was there for 10 years. It was kind of an era where you would pay your dues much longer than it seems like you do today. But I was there for 10 years, 9 of them as JV coach and varsity assistant. And Kevin was there as a freshman coach. That's where Kevin Weeren and I first met. And then I left Paul the Sixth to become the head coach at Langley.
So definitely paid your dues. Had a great run at Langley. I think you're at least regular season champ 2 or 3 years in a row. Won a tournament. Had a great run there. I used to love doing those games with the Langley and McLean. When I referee, I didn't get great games. The best game they would ever give me was the Langley and McLean. For some reason, they thought I deserved that game. So I always got that game. And then I think you went were at Centerville for a bit. Helped out with Osborne last year, and right. You've joined Coach Lin, and I believe you got the assistant coach from Fairfax to join you as well. Is that?
Yeah, Shaheen Dashti.
That's right. So you guys are putting together a murderer's row over there.
Oh, well, I think we're just very fortunate to have so many talented coaches that wants to be a part of a program to help kids. Shaheen's great. I mean, he's one of my best friends, and obviously Brian, someone that not just a friend, but someone I look up to. We're just very fortunate to have all these great coaches in the program.
Yeah. Well, why don't we start there? And this is something both of you guys can speak to. How do you go from being an assistant coach? Maybe you're tasked with certain roles in practice, or during a game, a coach may rely on one assistant more than others for advice or whatever. How do you go from being an assistant coach to putting a staff together and being a head coach? Is there are there instructions on how to do that, or is it a trial and error thing? So
definitely,
what is that process?
Yeah, definitely. There's a trial error process. Not everything you do is always going to be perfect, but I think, in my position, I spent 17 years as assistant coach in a high school level before I got my first head coach job at Marshall. During that time, you kind of understand what's like being an assistant coach, and because you learn how to craft that, and then once you became a head coach, you kind of understand what's like to be in assistant coach's shoes. I just felt like, when you are managing people, You have to understand their best talents and then utilize them by accessing that and give them roles and responsibility that's going to match to that talent level. So because of that, and we have, low ego management kind of guys who is just buying into what our program is about. So it's easy for me to kind of sell them on what their roles are. I think between combination of all that, I've had a really good string of good coaches that's been coaching our program in the last few years, and I'm really proud of that.
Yeah. Coach Doyle, you want to add something to that? Or
Sure. First off, you're never really prepared to be a head coach. I mean, you're as ready as you can be, but you don't know what it's like until you actually, move over that one seat and you're in charge of the whole program. And Jerry's done a great job. I think to prepare to do that, Jerry and I were both fortunate when we were younger coaches to be around really good people that gave us a lot of responsibility, delegated a lot of things to us. So, that just watching and observing and soaking it all in was really, really invaluable for me when I was at Paul VI coaching with Coach Grimm, so that by the time I left, I had thought through everything I wanted to do when I had my own program. And then so I felt ready, excuse me, but you're never really 100% prepared for all the things you have to do. But I think being around good people and just kind of being a sponge and soaking up and networking with a lot of people is the best thing you can do.
Yeah. And Coach Doyle, do you enjoy this part of your career when you've been a head coach, you've had success? Now you can really focus on the basketball. You don't have to worry about the parents. I mean, the parents get more demanding every year. The time commitments generally on coaches is going up, it seems, every year. Do you enjoy being able to just focus on some basketball and not worry about those kind of things?
Yeah, the best part of it is I can say, "Oh, he's the head coach. You need to talk to him about that." Yeah, I do. It actually, it took me a while to get here. Because when I stepped down, I was head coach at Centerville for 3 years, and I became an assistant principal. So it was I had to step away from it. I hadn't really planned on all that happening when it did. So I kind of still had the itch. So I stayed involved at Centerville, even though I was an assistant principal. I did the post-grad thing. I did some Fairfax, but I'm finally at the point now, because when you're running it like Jerry is, you have to be all in all the time. And it's a year-round endeavor. You got AAU you got to stay involved with. And so I'm finally at a point in my life where it's nice to not have all that responsibility, but to have some input. I'm fortunate to be with a guy that gives me some input, but also to know I can go home at night not really worrying about what happened in the freshman or JV program or what summer league we're going to play in or any parents that are concerned, so I don't have to worry about that stuff. So the short answer now is yes, it is nice to not have to worry about all that stuff and just do the basketball and the relationships with the other coaches and kids. I mean, that's the most enjoyable part of it all.
Yeah. Well, Coach, you've seen a lot of great coaches, Coach Doyle, come and go, as I have too. And I coach Jerry. And one thing I never know which kids are going to be great coaches. Like, for example, if you would have told me Dermia Marshall was going to be a really good basketball coach, because I coached him, I would never believe you. He was the hardest kid I ever coached. Wouldn't listen to a word I say. He'd argue over anything. What about Jerry, Coach Doyle, did you think would make him a great coach? I mean, when did you see that Jerry had potential to do such a good job?
Well, so I assisted Jerry with the Nova Cavaliers when my son was in high school. So that's when I really got to know Jerry more as a coach. I knew him as a person, as kind of a colleague coach before then, but being able to go through that AAU journey for 4 years with him is when I saw it. He's a really great student of the game, loves offense.
Yeah, that's true.
And loves kids. And so just the relationships with the kids, how much of a student of the game he is, and then super detail oriented. So I thought he had all the characteristics to be a head coach. Like a lot of young guys, he would go back and forth about whether he wanted to, but I knew he wanted to deep down, and he's at the right place. I mean, he is Marshall High School. He played here, he's coached here forever. He's done a million things during the school day that don't have anything to do with coaching. So he kind of bleeds Marshall red and blue. So he ended up at the right place for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I did mention Jerry is a special education teacher at Marshall, also assistant director of student activities. He got the award in 2015 for staff member of the year and Fairfax County support employee of the year as well. So Jerry does a great job in the building as well. Well, let's throw bricks at one of our mutual friends, Kevin Weeren. Now, so I coached Kevin's summer league teams where I met him, and great guy. Coach Doyle goes way back with him. Coach Jerry played for him. You never know anyone better than when you play for them. So, Jerry, talk about what kind of coach Coach Weeren was and what you learned from him.
Oh man, how do I even begin? Well, first of all, the guy has meant so much to my life. As a single parent, immigrant growing up, I was looking for a father figure for a long, long time. And he happened to come into my life when I was a player and a teenager at the right time. And his character and who he is as a person, his relationship building skill. It was just something that I had never experienced before. He talk about modeling somebody after, positive attributes. That was a guy that I just completely look up to in every facet of life. And when I talk about building a relationship with kids, especially in my job, both as an educator and as coaches, the way he goes about details in terms of how he's influenced other people's life and how he cares about other people is just influential. I know we're supposed to throw bricks at him, and we will, but my gosh, I don't think I am today without Kevin. He's just something, I would say for a young guy, he basically saved my life, and now I get the chance to impact others. I'm just very thankful to have Kevin.
Well, Coach Doyle, you're not going to let Coach Lin get away with that. So
yeah,
tell us a little bit more about
well,
Coach Weeren.
First things first, Julian, you could probably look out your window and see if he's been keeping his yard up and keeping his grass cut, because I believe you guys are neighbors now. I don't know if you've seen each other in the neighborhood.
Oh, he's in Lansdowne?
In the rough streets of Lansdowne.
Yeah.
On the
I didn't know he was. Oh, we got it. I'm glad you told me.
He's out there. Yep.
Yeah.
So, yeah. No, it's funny. He and I, we took similar paths. I'm a little bit older. So maybe I'm more the grandfather figure than the father figure, but, like when I was at Paul VI, I was a young coach. It was my second year out of college. I got to Paul VI, and at some point in there, maybe my third or fourth year, somewhere in there, Kevin came on staff, and he was still a student at George Mason, and he was coaching the freshman team at Paul VI. And eventually, I was a school counselor in Fairfax County schools at the time, and then he became a school counselor, and he was a PE teacher first for a couple of years, then became a school counselor. So we kind of followed the same path. He's been a few years behind me, but yeah, I mean, we went through everything. We were at Paul VI for a while, and then at Langley, when I got the job at Langley, he had gone over to Marymount University as an assistant. And then when I got the Langley job, I brought him over there, and he was an assistant there for 2 or 3 years before he got the Marshall job. So I don't know. There's probably all kinds of dirt and stories I could tell, but
right,
we might save that for an establishment or something.
Yeah. Well, we'll definitely got to get together, and when you come up and visit, we got to definitely have a beer or something.
Yeah, I will say this. Let me say this in terms of, it's not a brick, but he and I are really good friends, and we can't talk a whole lot now because he's an athletic director, so he's working all day and all night, but. Like in our heyday as coaches, we used to talk all the time, but when he became head coach of Marshall, we were in the same league. So it was almost like there was a moratorium on talking. Like the week we were playing each other, we probably didn't talk, 2 or 3 days before and 2 or 3 days after, because district games, as Jerry knows, you're so emotional and they mean so much. And so it was good and bad, coaching against a really good friend. So we would kind of put our friendship aside for like the 2 or 3 days before or after we played. So we can laugh about it now, but it was competitive rivalry then.
Well, it's tough no matter how you shake it. Basketball is a very emotional game. There's just no way around it. And so feelings are always going to be hurt or at least involved. Let's talk about the Liberty District. Now, Marshall hasn't always been in the Liberty District, but it is now. But it's a great district. I mean, I love watching the games. All the gyms are kind of old school, small gyms, except for, I guess, Wakefield has a new one. But it seems like it's always parity. Coach Doyle, you're back in the Liberty District again.
Yep.
Coach Lim, you're enjoying yourself there. So let's talk about coaching there and some of the reasons why you like it so much.
Well, one of the things I noticed, and we moved from National District to Liberty District 2 years ago, right after the COVID year. One of the things I noticed right away was how everybody is so well prepared in our league. I think the coaches does a heck of a job. I had been in the same district with Tony Bentley, and Tony, as you know, is one of the Titans and one of the best coaches in Northern Virginia. But then, matching up against, Michael Bryan and Bobby Dobson, who we have really good rivalry with the last 2 years. I have the utmost respect for Bobby and his program, how he motivates his kids. And then there's also really good coaches like Kevin Quinlan, Scott Newman, and now David Conroe. They're just, now Joe Kymick is in the district. There's just so many good coaches. Every night, I know that we have to be well prepared for different style basketball and different sort of preparation and possible different scheme that we're going to see. So being versatile and being ready is probably more paramount than I ever remember being a coach since I've been to this district.
Yeah. Well, Coach, you've been involved in Liberty District for many years.
Off and on,
Yeah.
but yeah, the entire time I was at Langley, we were in Liberty. One of the things that I remember from back then was, like Jerry said, the coaches were very good, but we also had really good relationships among the coaches. Obviously you're trying to beat each other's brains out during the season, but there was always a mutual respect. We always had fun when we had our coaches meetings and get together. So that made it enjoyable too. Again, just those relationships we had. There were good rivalries, and I'm looking forward to kind of renewing some of those here at Marshall and schools that are really close to each other. I mean, Marshall
Yep.
and McLean and Langley, and we'll go back to my alma mater and play Madison.
Yep.
So those kind of close
Proximity.
rivalries, from the proximity it makes it even better. And a lot of the kids know each other anyway from AAU and all that stuff. So I'm looking forward to kind of getting back to some of those rivalries I experienced in the past.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Madison guys, Coach Roller, who was on the staff when I was a summer league coach, I knew Kevin back then. Madison and Marshall played some incredible games. I mean, I think it's a rivalry in baseball and other sports as well.
Yep.
But the basketball was unbelievable between these
Yep.
two schools. What's the relationship like with Coach Roller? Being so close and being such tough rivals.
Well, we're not quite the way Brian and Kevin Weeren was back in the days with their Marshall and Langley days where we don't talk to each other before and after. I mean, Kevin and I are really good. We obviously go out on dinner and we hang out a lot. He comes to our summer league. I go to his fall league. I've been to his house multiple times and had dinner there. Kevin was another guy that when I was young really looked after me. I would never forget the things that he's done for me personally. This guy probably shaped the way I think about basketball, probably more than anybody I've ever been around. He's a basketball encyclopedia. The way he teaches things. I go to the games when we played Marshall-Madison the last 3 or 4 years. I told my kids every single time before the game we played them, I told them that, listen, guys, we're not going to have the tactical advantage. I mean, Coach Roller is the best at what he does, and we can only hope that we can beat them with effort because that's how much respect I have for what he's capable of and what his program has been the last few years. Kevin Roller, just an amazing basketball coach.
Yeah, he is. He's done a great job. Well, guys, Coach Doyle mentioned that I'm out here in Loudoun now, and Jerry, you briefly went to Loudoun and joined Coach Weeren's staff at Freedom South Riding. What was the environment like coaching basketball in Loudoun County? Is it much different than coaching in Fairfax and Marshall?
Yeah, so when I was at Freedom South Riding, it was 2007, 2008. At that time, it was sort of doing this influx of like new schools from Loudoun that was building. A lot of new school opened during that time. The one of the consistent thing though, and I thought it was always the titan of the Loudoun was Jeff Hoss in Potomac Falls at the time. Jeff had pay his dues and started off at Pop Falls as the first coach there. And he went from, I think they were in Concord District once upon a time, and then he obviously settled into the Loudoun's area where their district formed. He just had teams that were just awesome over the years. I was able to meet Mark Alexander too, who was the Loudoun County coach who just recently retired. Those two guys, I just have just sort of a lot of admiration for what they do. Jeff has the ability to connect with his kids in the ways that like I didn't even see before that. I've seen a coach where he can make the last guy on the bench feels just as important as the best player on the team. And I took that to heart and just sees his energy and his enthusiasm. I got just nothing but respect for Jeff's ability to do that. And Mark Alexander, who was coaching the county, I just think that he's a guy who, talk about student of the game, he was doing things X and O wise with his kids that like I didn't think kids at the high school level can handle the comprehension of the things, the details that he was teaching from the X and O standpoints. They were running different offenses, motions, sets, and I was just like, wow, this guy is unbelievable with his basketball knowledge. So those two guys really stood out when I was at Freedom South Riding through those 2 years. Obviously, the talents there has been evolved and has been great since. There's been really other good coaches in Allen Loudoun, but I was very appreciative that 2 years I was there, that I was able to see different style basketball, and I think that helped me shape who I am today, certainly from an X and O basketball coach standard.
Yeah. Well, Coach Doyle, last year as a member of Osborne's staff, you were in the toughest district maybe in the state last year. Freedom and Battlefield were unbelievable. I think Liberty South, Freedom South Riding was very solid. Gainesville had Grant Polk. I mean, there were truly no nights off last year. What did you think about the culture of Prince William basketball? Did you learn anything new? And what was that experience like?
It was fun because it was new for me. I had spent my entire career in Fairfax County, and that was kind of one of the attractions. At this stage of my coaching career, I kind of want to do, kind of be selective, and I was like, let me try something new and jump into the Prince William, coaching circle and athletics, which I had never been a part of. So, but you're right. I mean, it was tough. I mean, Patriot, obviously has it going on. Battlefield's very good. Gainesville, like you said, had a good year. So you're just trying to kind of, it's like you're looking at schedule saying, where are we going to get some wins? But it was enjoyable being around coaches that I hadn't been around and seeing some different players for sure. Had the opportunity to coach Tay Barber, who's outstanding. I mean, that was, I'd be lying if I don't know if I would have gone out there, otherwise. I mean, Rocky and I were just basketball friends, but the idea that somebody like Tay was on the roster, I was like, well, let me take a close look at this. And it was really enjoyable to coach such a talented player. So that part was really fun. I'm so excited that he's made that commitment to the admissions process, I guess is what you say, at Harvard. To play for Tommy Amaker up there. But that was enjoyable. So I enjoyed it. It was actually I live in Centerville, and it was actually probably, other than Centerville High School, it might be just the closest high school in terms of distance. I mean, OP is pretty close, but you never know what traffic's going to be like on 28. But going down to Osborne it was pretty convenient too. So it was enjoyable to step out of the basketball world I had been in all of my coaching career.
Any advice for Coach Marshall as he starts his Osborne reign?
I'll have to check in with him. I know they've had some turnover there. Obviously, Tay is not there anymore. Yeah. And so we'll see. I mean, it's funny because there's a lot of Fairfax educators that have gone to Osborne.
Yeah, the
And
principal.
Mike Pflugereth is the principal, so he was in the Liberty District when I was at Langley. And John Ellenberger is the AD. He came from Annandale. He's a former football coach. So Dermy is joining kind of a long list of people that are out there finishing out their teaching and coaching careers. But the interesting thing is Osborne's a one school district there in the city of Manassas. So the whole city really supports the school. And I had not been in that environment.
Yep.
And it's a little bit like, we played over at Manassas Park, which is are they 1A still, 2A? They're one of the lower divisions. Yeah. But it's very interesting going into a school district that only has one school, one high school, when you come from a place like Fairfax. Right. So it was kind of cool to see the whole community come out. So I'm sure Dermy he and I have talked a little bit, but he's probably learned pretty quickly, that whole city will support you. And I'm sure he's already been out to kind of meet the community and, to the schools and the youth leagues and all of that. So that part's kind of cool, is being you're the one high school that the whole city of Manassas wants to support. Totally different from Fairfax.
Yeah, they're going to love them. Well, let's talk a little bit about Marshall this year, but let's start off with last year's team. I know obviously Matthew Leonard is doing tremendous in soccer. He's playing at College of Charleston. He's been starting lately. Right. I think he was All-State his junior year. I think he was first team All-State, but it's an unbelievable record at Marshall. But also Cam Jones, I believe, coach is playing at Marymount.
Mary Washington.
Yes. And then Charlie McDermott, is he playing as well?
He's playing instrument at UVA.
He's UVA. Yeah. Well, give us the update on this on your graduating class.
So as you know, Matt Leonard, he's been on varsity with us since he was a sophomore. He was a player of the year last year. I just had the utmost pleasure of coaching him. He's a great basketball player, a great athlete. He's multi-sports, he's playing soccer now at College of Charleston. Basketball, although he loves the game, but a lot of offseason in the last 2 years, we don't have in offseason all that much. And it's just phenomenal to me that he will come into our season and be the basketball player that he is. But probably more impressively is that, with Matt, he was with me as a sophomore when we weren't very good at the time. And, there was a lot of tough time between COVID and the season that we had. And he stuck by me through thick and thin. And I just appreciate his ability to be coached the right way. Because there's times where, anybody who played for me, I am intense and I get after it. And for your best player to buy in and never question what you do, it sets a model for the rest of the players in the program. And with Matt, I couldn't be happier with the obviously the career that he's had with us at Marshall basketball. He meant so much to our basketball program. So I'm just very thankful to coach him. Cam Jones and Charlie McDermott, they both had great season for us. Charlie McDermott came out of nowhere. Both of them actually as juniors, they didn't play a whole lot because I had a guy named Audie Fringes that year, who was spectacular as an athlete and had a great senior year that year. So those two guys came out of nowhere and really had a good season for us last year. Cam was a kid from Arkansas that we got as a transfer when he was a junior. So it was pretty amazing how he assimilated into the group dynamic in such a short amount of time. He's a great kid and everybody here loves him. Charlie was talk about a guy with so many talents in so many facets of life. He was in a marching band. He's in, Unified Olympics, Special Olympic volunteering. He was playing basketball. He's got like a 4.5 GPA when he was in high school. I mean, he was a Machiavellian. He's just a guy who does everything. But we had a great senior group. There's also guys like, Brandon Lee, Alex Rothman, Owen Growney, and Ryan Porchoge. They were just a special group of senior kids we had last year. I think the way we were sending off winning the district was the right way for to go. I was just very lucky to have a great group of seniors.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, and Coach Doyle may have some comments on this one as well, because last year, 2 years ago, your team appeared very talented. Going into last year, you would have thought that it might be a little bit of a rebuild, even though Leonard was great. But Jason Penn, I don't think he played that much as a sophomore, and Omar was still developing. Jose hadn't even been there. So you guys last year often were completely dominant. You would beat good teams by 20 points. And I think everyone was surprised because you guys had some talent, but you didn't seem to have the most dominant team in the world. And I think you probably won most of your games by more than 20 points. How do you explain that dominance?
I'll tell you my observations.
Yeah, go ahead.
I came to a couple of his practices last year and watched a couple games because I was curious, I'm like, who's this team that's won 15, 16 in a row or whatever it was? And they're giving up like 35 points a game or something crazy. And you're exactly right, Julian. Like and Jerry knows this, and I hope the players don't take offense, but I walked in the gym and I was like, those guys have won 16 in a row and they're 19 or whatever, because, they don't pass the traditional eye test. But I'll tell you what, in terms of buy-in and the culture that Jerry's established, they're off the charts. I mean, it's unbelievable. There's not a kid out there that doesn't buy into what he's trying to do, and they hold each other accountable. He's pretty intense, and they allow Coach Lin to coach them hard, and they don't take it personally. And it's hard to find that, like, these days, from top to bottom. So to me, like, that's what gives them an edge. The X's and O's are good, and the kids are good players. Don't get me wrong. But, as a coach, you always have to think what can give us an advantage over another team, because everybody's trying to do the same thing. And his kids just completely buy into everything they're doing, and the culture is outstanding. So to me, that's what jumped out at me last year. And that's when things started to change in my coaching situation, where I thought maybe I want to be part of this in the future.
So, Jerry, did you have any? I mean, it's tough to follow that, but did you have anything you want to add to that? Yeah.
Well, it's always nice to hear from, and Brian last year technically was, even though he's a great friend of mine, but as an outsider looking in, when people say that about your program, it's always nice to hear. But, obviously the last 2 years, I had a great group of kids who buy into team culture. And we have a program identity where we have expectation and standard. It's funny because, I think basketball talents is important. You got to have players to win. But if your kids are not buying into what you do as a program, it's really hard to sell or to do what you want to do. Our kids have done it with flying colors over the last couple of years. I think we've been a pretty talented team, but we've done a better job playing the whole sum is bigger than the part sort of mentality. Our kids, we had different leading scores every single night. We don't have one guy who just takes over. I know Matt was a player of the year for us last year, but Matt's stats compared to other player of the years around the area, his stat, I would say, is modest compared to others, because we have a system in place where you can't just key on one guy. It was going to be multiple guys doing multiple different things. So I think that made us dangerous. And we play I would say we do the best we can play a efficient style of basketball. Last year we were, I think we led the Fairfax County region, whatever, in scoring defense, but it didn't tell the whole story because we actually probably was slower in pace, but our kids had to buy into that. Sometimes kids want to go up and down, they want to play freely, but it takes a great deal of restraint and and discipline to play the way we did. And I think because they were able to sacrifice that, it allows us to have a great year to play in a slower pace, mentality last year. It's not always the most exciting style, but when you got kids who can buy into it, then it becomes easier to sell when you have a winning culture, as you know.
Yeah. I hope I'm not being accused of favoring UVA, but is it a pack line?
Yeah.
That I'm saying? It is.
Yeah, so ironically, we did both last year. We did the defensive style, pack line defense. My assistant coach last year, Paul Wesnowski, who came from Langley, he did a absolutely amazing job installing the pack line mentality. We didn't run that, the first 3 years I was here. So last year, that was a brand new thing for us. Then on offensive end, we also ran mover blocker, which is also Tony Bennett stuff. So like we just had a style that kind of match UVA's, if you will. And because of that, that kind of explained the pace that we were playing at last year. I thought the guys did a great job. We had a traditional lineup that had like a 5-4-3-2-1 man, if you will. This will be an interesting year coming up here because this offseason, we kind of flipped the page and we're kind of trying to play a different style of basketball, positionless, if you will, under Brian's influence. I think it's been exciting, but I can't wait to see what it looks like when the season starts because in the offseason we've been kind of playing this completely new positionless basketball just to match our personnel that we have. So it'd be exciting to see.
Yeah, Coach Rivers has accused you guys of being in midseason form already. Just to heap a little pressure on you guys. Well, let's talk a little bit about this team. You've got two very efficient guards, Jason Penn. Jason's probably 6'1", 6'2". He's got unlimited range. Yeah, very long. Jose, just a very efficient scorer, great shooter, but I don't think he forces the 3-pointer. There's very rarely that when he shoots, you don't want him to shoot because he's got a great chance of making it. And then Omar Phillips, kind of a flashy player last year. You kept him under a tight rein last year. You take him out of the game sometime, but you can see there were some games where he was going to really help you and he had an impact. So he's obviously a very talented kid. So talk a little bit about those three players and some of the other players as well.
Yeah, so I'll start with Jason because he's been with us the longest. He's been on varsity since he's a sophomore. We won 40 games now the last 2 years. So like he's been in every one of them, obviously. And hopefully we have a good season. To me, he's just a winning basketball player. He makes things happen. He'll do any kind of roles or any sort of job assignment we ask him of. As a sophomore, he was a very young and talented kid. He was in our rotation with a bunch of older guys who were seniors, and he was able to adapt and assimilate himself into the group, which was very impressive at the time. Then, last year, as I mentioned earlier, we had a very traditional kind of lineup. We playing a slower pace. He played the point guard position, and he had to think about running the offense first and looking for his shots second. And, he did the job, seamlessly without any sort of complaint and just sort of sacrifice himself for us to have a greater season. Maybe in some program, he could have scored more points, but that wasn't who he's about. He had just been, with the previous group. He know what winning means. So it was just like, for him, he's just been our leader in so many ways. He's just so selfless. And this offseason, he's taken his game to a different level. Now he's playing not just point guard, but, wings and, threes and fours. He's playing all kind of different positions just so that we can put more basketball players onto the court. I just can't thank him enough because, with Jason, I think he is our best player. But it starts with his sacrifice. I think Jason's going to have a great year, but we can't do anything without him being the head of the snake, if you will. He's just been awesome to have. Jose Fudd, last year we got him first year with us. That is a ultimate 3-and-D guy. Jose's our best defender. He has the ability to guard multiple different positions. He is competitive. He's tenacious. He's tough. Obviously he came from a basketball pedigree of a family of riches of basketball experience. And with his basketball IQ, he's able for me to be adaptive with him and be creative of how to utilize his ability. Jose, I would say, is kind of like the heart and soul of our team because he just plays so hard on both ends of the floor. And I think his defense is so underrated. The fact that he's able to guard 3 or 4 positions for our team has been, a special part of our weapon for our scheme. Omar, I love the kid to death. He's a kid that when we got him as a freshman, he played freshman level, played sophomore on JV. I know he had a lot of talent, but he's never played he never played county league ball. He never played AAU until he got to high school. So there was a lot of street ball, flashiness, as you mentioned earlier. That's where he kind of came from. I grew up kind of like that. I grew up without playing a lot of organized basketball. I kind of play pickup or go to the rec center and do all kind of, fun things. So to play structure, organized basketball, it takes a different kind of mindset and training. Omar last year, he started the season kind of up and down, but by the end of the season, there's no question he was one of our 5 best players. This offseason, he's taken his game to a different level. Now he's a scorer now he can shoot the basketball. He is a very graceful player to watch. He handles the ball with a level of smoothness and pace about him. He just has a great body movement as a guard. I'm excited to have him. Another kid I've been big on this whole offseason has been my point guard, Andy Tanaka, who didn't play a whole lot last year. Last year, we didn't, we played at a different pace. We didn't need to have a third point guard on the team, but a lot of people didn't know or don't know how good Andy Tanaka is. Andy Tanaka has led us in scoring in several offseason summer league or team camp or fall league games. He's a guy to watch for us. When he comes in a game, he brings a different dynamic. He's fast. He's fearless going to the rim. He has acceleration, explosiveness to him. We have a fun team coming back here with kind of like an all guards lineup. I'm just excited about them.
And with Coach Doyle there, can Coach Doyle guard Anderson Crisco in practice? Can he bang him around a little bit and work?
Well, ironically, that's the position that you're working on, right?
I can hold that blocking pad and beat on him a little bit. That's the extent of it. I'm a few years removed from that. I think I'm smarter than to try to do that now.
Exactly. So what are your impressions? What are your impressions of these guys, Coach, come from the outside?
Yeah. Well, kind of like what I said earlier, the culture is very attractive, the buy-in from the kids. The coaching staff is awesome. Jerry mentioned Paul Wisnowski, who's really kind of leads a lot of the offseason stuff for Jerry. Jerry's trying to hold on to him as long as he can, because he'll be a head coach before too long. Shaheen Dashji runs the Nova Cavaliers. So they're all very much, you have to be plugged into the AAU scene these days. Ross Callahan is Nova Cavs coach. He loves offense. Paul does a lot of defense. Jerry doesn't know how to spell defense. But it allows Jerry to delegate. And then AJ is another coach. So for me, it's nice for me. There's so many guys around. I hope that maybe I can give a little bit something to them as well. It reminds me of, early in my coaching career. I know Paul wants to be a head coach. I don't know if the other guys do or not. But just it's so well organized. The kids are great. It's probably not the norm, that everybody seems to be on the same page. That would be my only concern, with the younger coaches is you're in a situation where everybody buys in, everybody embraces the culture. It doesn't always come together like that, but that is half the battle. So that part's really enjoyable. And for me also, being an older guy and having known Jerry for a long time, I'm okay challenging him from time to time. He and I get in conversations about different things sometimes, and we listen to each other. We learn from each other. And I appreciate that. He lets me do that. And he also gives me a little bit of flexibility in my attendance if I need that at this stage of my life, if there's other things that come up that I want to run around and do a little bit. So it's been great. I'm excited to be here. And if he can just pay for my express lane tolls to go back to Centerville every day, then that'll make the relationship just a little bit stronger.
Fair warning, Coach Lin. Coach Doyle used to challenge me No, I was refereeing his games a lot. It wasn't always constructive either. So,
well, relationship referee is very important. I mean, we learned it this past the last couple of years. Or a Cardinal official, and I mean, I think the referee's got a hard job. I mean, like, I think having good relationship, I mean, it's a big thing, and I'm glad that Coach Doyle is finally learning at the age of 82.
Yeah. Well, let's talk briefly, and I'm taking a lot of your time here. Let's talk briefly about the rest of the Liberty District this year. I understand Wakefield may be strong again this year. I know they lost Kobe Davis to Flint Hill, but apparently they've had a pretty good summer league. So what have you been seeing in the offseason, and what's your guys' prediction for the Liberty?
Yeah, I think our league is going to be deeper than it's been the last couple of years, which have already been good. But this upcoming season, there's just a lot of exciting players. As you mentioned, Wakefield Tony, he did lose Kobe, but he got two big transfer, Miles Hancock and also on Carlton Young. Young in particular, he's a kid from Florida. I watch him in summer league. I mean, talk about like a Zion Williamson-ish, like kind of a high school player. He's big, he's agile, he's under control. He passes the heck out of the ball. He's going to be a problem. When I watch him play, he's a matchup nightmare. I think he's got potential to be one of the best players in a district. And then, with what Tony has coming back, he has a lot of guard play. Horace's son, BJ is a very good player. They have a lot of depth at the guard position. Wakefield's deep, maybe the deepest. I like them a lot. I think they're going to be a really good team in our district. Another team I really like is McLean. I think Coach O'Brien over there has done a tremendous job with them over the last few years. They got a very good nucleus kids coming back. One of the key players for them is a kid that was out all last year, Jeremy Fuke. He had a knee injury. Now he's back. And, if he didn't get hurt last year, he was going to be one of the top players in our district. And I think him coming back is going to, make them one of the favorites. They have another great athlete, great player in Isaac Bell, who's a 6'3" athletic center. He can go up and down the floor. He's a tremendous athlete, can dunk, can grab boards, can make defensive play happen and shoot the ball. They also have a Lithuania freshman coming in. He is a really good passer, seamless. So Coach O'Brien has a lot of, different style of players and talents at his disposal, along with his good coaching. I think McLean is going to be a force to be reckoned with. I think those two teams, to me, are probably two of the favorites in our league. I think, across the board, there's a lot of good teams too. Like Langley probably has, in my opinion, probably the best player coming back in Ryan Bradshaw. I coached in AAU this past season. Ryan's a tremendous kid. He's got a lot of basketball talent. He's a big guard with size, and he plays under control at all time. And he just knows how to create scoring opportunity for himself and his teammate. Coach Conroe does a really good job with them too. I think Langley could be top of our league too as well. Yorktown with the new coach, Coach Kaimek, who I competed against when he was a Falls Church coach back in the days. He's going to have their system running in no time. They have a kid named Al Maria. I think his parents coach at George Mason University for soccer. He's a super dynamic athlete. He's been having a great offseason. And I know that Yorktown had a couple of sophomores last year that was on varsity, like the pilot kid. They got some talent, and they've been having a good fall. And I know Coach Kaimek can really coach them up. Other coaches, like the last 2 years, I just have, like I said earlier, an incredible amount of respect for Coach Dobson. I know Coach Dobson's like us, which we lost a lot in terms of the seniors that we had the last couple of years. But I watched Coach Dobson and WNL in the offseason. I know they're going to be competitive. Coach Dobson has a way of getting his kids play up to their potential. They one of the hardest working kids. I think they're going to have a surprising season. I think people are counting them out, and when they shouldn't. I think WNL will be very, very competitive. And I know Herndon, Quinlan, I think he just got a rookie of the year, kind of like a freshman kid coming in. Everybody's been raving about this freshman coming in that's going to take the league by storm, if you will. I think all in all, it's a very competitive league, and I can't wait to watch how everybody plays here.
Yeah. I just want to say one of my favorite soccer players who's also a solid basketball player is Calf Eaton from McLean.
Oh yeah,
I like watching
absolutely.
that kid play. He's a really scrappy soccer player. And I will say Langley, I've never seen a team improve as much as that. I saw them play against Yorktown last year. Yorktown beat them by 25, 30 points. And my son was there. He's like, Dad, these guys are terrible. By the end of the year, Langley was giving everybody fits. And it's just so funny how basketball can, when you get that chemistry and that belief, it can just change in the middle of the year. Coach, I don't know if you've been a chance to see what's going on around the area, but do you have anything to add to that, or Coach Doyle?
Well, I appreciate, like, Tony Bentley and Bobby Dobson been at it for a long time. I was a head coach for 13 years, and those guys have been head coaches for much longer than that now. It's hard. Like, it's a hard job, and to be able to kind of change with the times and change as your schools change and continue to run first-class programs and be successful on the court. I appreciate seeing guys that can just do it year after year, which turns into decade after decade sometimes. So that's really cool. Mike O'Brien's been at it for a while. Kevin Roller's been at it for a while. You can talk about the Brian Mitrases and Jim Smiths of the world. So I appreciate that. But I'm looking forward to, because I was at Fairfax for 2 years, then I did post-grad for 2 years, then I did Prince William. So I wasn't as connected, to Jerry's league. So I'm kind of looking forward to getting back in to that and getting in some of the old gyms that I used to spend a lot of time in. I'm familiar with some of these players, not as much as I will be a month from now when we start digging into huddle and game planning and all that stuff. But I'm looking forward to it for sure.
Yeah. Well, last question, guys, and I appreciate all your time. What about the rest of the area? Obviously, South Lakes is probably the team to beat, with Jordan's got 25 Division I offers, 2 transfers, but Brian Kennedy, I shouldn't start naming players because they have so many solid players. They're going to be really tough. Obviously, Hayfield, we can't count them out because they had some young players that didn't get a chance to play much last year that I'm sure are going to have an impact. So looking around the former Northern region, but we call it Northern region, Occoquan region now. What else are you guys looking at for this season?
Well, certainly, Patriot. I don't know which region are they?
I guess there's 6. We'll count that too. 6B.
Jerry will laugh at me, but it's kind of like college these days. It's like, I don't even know who's in which district or which region or what they're called anymore. I just know the good teams. So, but out there,
Patriot is very strong.
Yeah. We saw then we were able to play against in the summer between Tave and Des Hopkins and also Viggs. And Sherman does a tremendous job with that team. Talk about a program with winning expectation and culture. Sherman's got it down for sure. They're going to be a threat to win the state. And I think they're at it again this year. But I think South Lakes, obviously, they're kind of like the talk of the town because, Desmond had a really good run the last few years. But this upcoming season might be the most talented team it's ever had. Jordan Scott's an amazing player, probably has a chance to achieve a status similar to, the Scotty Reynolds or Grant Hill, the legends that we have in the past. He's certainly on his way to do that. They just got the 2 transfer from the 2 brothers, Rochester brothers from O'Connell. And then they are at Kennedy, and they also have Billings. They have a lot of talents on that team. I think they have a chance to have a sort of like a Hayfield-esque dynasty that the last 2 years Hayfields have had this season or the next year too, as well as South Lakes for the next couple of years. There's also a lot of good teams out there. I know Hayfield, you can never count them out. I think Carlos Poindexter is a future VHSL Hall of Fame coach, whatever you want to call it. The dynasties he's had the last 2 years has been absolutely phenomenal. It's probably the greatest public school run I can remember in my lifetime. And obviously he had a great team, but his team is still going to be very competitive this season. We saw them a few times. He's got some really good players too still. I think people shouldn't be counting out, to be honest. And then, a good team that I saw 2 weeks ago at the South County team camp was Tuscarora down in Loudoun. I think that team was really impressive. I know they're in a different classification as all of us, and they're a little bit more west than what this area, the local area is. But I think that is a team that impressed me when I watched them play. As always, the Patriot District. I mean, you could put a blindfold on and just pick any of those teams between Alexandria City or Woodson or West Potomac or Fairfax and South County. There are just so many good teams in that district, probably the most competitive district, from top to bottom. I think that league has a lot of good players and good coaches. I think there's this area, this public school year is going to have a lot of good teams and good players. There's a lot of excitement.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, anytime a fourth and a fifth seed can win the conference tournament in consecutive years, West Potomac, it's a great district. The Patriot every night is great. So, well, look, guys, this has been great. First of all, Coach Doyle, I'm so glad you're staying in the game. You're a great guy, great coach. Jerry's lucky to have you. And Coach Lin, you've done a phenomenal job. Makes me proud to know that I knew you when you were a summer league player. Upset at me for not playing you as much as you probably should have, but you did a great job. I sat behind the bench, all your games last year because I'm good friends with Keith Leonard, and I saw what a great job you're doing. So, just keep it up. Hopefully you guys can. You got to the regional semis, I believe, the last 2 years. Yep. So, one more step, and you guys will go to the state tournament.
Thank you, Julian. And, really appreciate everything you've done covering just like, the sports in Northern Virginia public school, high school. I think a lot of our fans is connected through everything that you've done for, the high school kids. I'm just very lucky to be on this show, I feel like. And thank you for asking us. But we're excited about the season, and we think it's going to be a wonderful one.
Yeah.
Thanks, Julian. I appreciate it. It's always good to see you.
Yeah, you too, man. And don't forget about social media. Coach Weeren and Coach Doyle had a great show too. One of these days, I'm gonna get these guys when they're not so busy, collaborate with me on something. But
reunion.
Exactly. So look, again, guys, appreciate it. I'm sure I'll be seeing you on the courts a lot this season.
Sounds good.
All right, buddies, take care.